it's really a personal reason why I would like to speak, and that reason is that so many people I know have been affected or impacted upon in the story as it's told. So just going back a bit, when we speak of some of the people that have been involved with the APB over the years, I can tell you some personal stories. Back in '78, I was with the APB workers as serial hunter. He was the one that always used to pick me up to do stuff. So as a child, they were my heroes. Terry Hunter, a lot of the players of Uncle Dickie Wilson. I mean, Uncle Dickie's been a part of my life from far back as I can remember. And in the East Kimberley side, all the Gerard's family, my mother's family is all connected with the Gerard family in East Kimberley. They all work for APB. So I do this interview because we're talking about my family, and what people don't really realize when we look at some of the interviews that have been done, we see individuals speaking. But what I see is all these families that are linked together that was part of this workforce. So then following on from 78, I also had another list of experiences in Fitzroy Crossing. I was working there as a young plant operator on the airport, and on the weekends, you know, we'd join the APB boys, we'd go out and visit them, and we'd be at Jubilee on Alexander Island. It's a massive big island in the middle of the Fitzroy River. So my memory is knowing these men, particularly the Cyril, the Terry and Uncle Dickie. They were very, very, top class men. And I say that because I know Cyril and Terry, they come from my family. My dad viewed Cyril as a brother and also a son. During their lives growing up, both Cyril and Terry, my mum and dad, had a hand in looking after them. So, and I grew up with these stories. And they were always in and out of our house, and you know, I understand them to be athletic, extremely tough, Kimberley tough, work tough, very, very hard-working men with, you know, very strong principles and work ethics. And if you had engaged these men to be part of your workforce, they were goers, real goers, hard workers, slug it out, task orientated, they would get the job done. They were passionate about their own standards and their own work ethics. You never caught them without a job. So I know that caliber of people, that's something that was commonplace. And we all descend from that thinking. And Uncle Dickie, wow, they just, these men we're talking about, you know, they lived their lives on cattle stations, they're born and bred, and they just worked through the droving days, worked through all the hardship of all horseback. They were athletic, naturally athletic, all their lives, just tough men that lived in the bush and worked hard all their lives. Their work ethic is just amazing, and we grew up with that. In fact, Uncle Dickie had he had a knack. So he had all his sons and daughters, but he also had a string of nephews and nieces. And as one of those nephews, just sitting with him and listening to him all the time, he always made you feel special. He always made you feel you got it. You're gonna be a good man. He always made you feel like, you were already on your way to doing good things and being a hard-working person, and you come from the same category. And when we were young, we all believed in that cattleman
They were
side.
good teachers. They taught us
Extremely good teachers, good mentors,
pride in your work. Everything.
and never spoke nonsense ever. They were, very disciplined speakers and very disciplined workers, and that was the standard of man. And it, for us to, it was like you aspire to be something like that. When I speak, I'm speaking from from experience of these people were our idols. They were our heroes, and it's amazing to hear now. The story comes out that in the course of working with the APB, it took this toll. It had this impact on them personally, and I can tell you, I remember when Cyril died. He was living with Sue Tate at the time, and about 10 to 5 in the morning, she came around home and got my dad and said, "Uncle, it's Cyril," and she was very, very alarming, and it wasn't good. So Dad immediately just jumped in the car and went with her straight up to Cyril, to where they were living in their house at Nosey Street East. And so I come along 10 minutes later, and my dad was crying at the front of the house, leaning on the bull bar. And he was big on first aid. We always talk about that in my growth as a kid. So if anyone could do something, it's Dad. And there I found him. When I pulled up, he was there crying, and I was about 16 at the time. So I went in there, and I held Cyril. I was trying to talk and trying to tap him on the cheeks, and he was this man, a mountain of a man, just a ball of muscle, just tough, Kimberley tough man who I just couldn't process it at the time, and I was just in shock. So I remember it being a very difficult time for my dad, and a difficult time for all of us, because in 1983 Dad lost his older brother, Uncle Bluegum, in the beginning of 1983. And at the end of 1983, we lost Cyril. So it's like losing two brothers in 1 year. Very tough time. So in the way that I knew these people, the connection I had with these people, that's why I feel the need to say something. And then we move on to the others that have been involved. Trevor Lockyer, Ricky Greatrix. I mean, they were we're the same age. So we come through the schooling journey together. At 15, I went away working on a cattle station. Trevor was there, Trevor and I. We went through a hell of a time, great times. And, he was just tough as nails. Ricky, I remember him starting to go blind. And we was like, what went on? And no one could put a finger on it. I remember going to Perth for basketball, and Ricky was already down there seeing the doctors, and I was asking he was trying to explain what was going on, and he was just telling me about his vision, how it was, it was sort of like a big spot in the middle, but he could, from the outside, he'd turn sideways and he could sort of see a bit, and it was sort of deteriorating badly. Anyway, so these were conversations we had along the way. The thing is, all of these men that worked for the APB, because we come from a small town, we all know each other. And I've had so much to do with people by the likes of Steve-O, Michael Seriago, Kevin Akins, all of these people, I've known them all my life, and as a young fella, you look on top of you, looking up, and you look at those that are older than you. You want to aspire to, be as good as them. Straight out of school, labouring. And now we're at the other end, and we start to talk about the journey, and it just seems to me that there's no secret here. All the symptoms are lined up with the stories. The stories have been told. The symptoms are the same. The experiences are the same. The grueling challenges that each of these men have had are the same. And then we move on a little bit more. The children have been affected. The wives have been affected. Children have lost their lives in a long, grueling bout with different forms of cancer. And I refer to Nigel, which is closest to me, because I was very close to Cyril, and I always was just torn. It just ripped apart. I always made it a point to talk to Nigel. But his journey just blew me away. Just stumped me.
Back then,
It's just heart-wrenching. All I know was the stories, the stories of what they did, because you ask a question what they do, blah, blah, blah. They obviously had work equipment all around. It was a very neat camp. Everything was segregated, very well organised, very, it was a highly functioning camp. And you had to work as a team. Everybody had to have things organised and, ready to go for the next day. They had all their work gear on one side. And all the food stuff, and the kitchen was over there, and generators and vegan. It was a good camp, clean camp.
Good, clean camp, yeah.
They did things to the best of their ability. These blokes were built like they would live to 80, like a normal Kimberley, hard-working person's life. And it was ripped away from them. And we didn't understand it at the time. And now then we share the journey of their children going through these things. We've lost kids that really, those people should have enjoyed their children. They should have enjoyed their grandchildren. And none of their wives, and no intergenerational impact should exist. Mm-hmm. But it does, big time. So I can speak from a position of knowing all these people are either related, and I'm related to them as well. And now I see this intergenerational impact from using the material and these chemicals that they used. Now the conversations are the same. The information that we've been sharing, it really lines up that there is something that has happened here that hasn't been addressed. And I really almost don't know what to say, but what I can say is that human beings make decisions. Human beings made the decisions to bring these chemical substances to our front door. So there would be negligence on behalf of the powers that were, and because nothing has been done until date, it appears that there's a gross carriage of injustice and needs to be addressed. How you do that is the question. So what I would like to see is a formal investigation with some teeth, with government goodwill, to really look at coming up with some answers, coming up with some way of addressing the way that it's impacted on people's lives. It's just a, you know, those that made the decisions to put it on a ship, move it around the country to the point that it arrived in the different areas that it did. You know, we talk about the Murchison Gascoigne, we talk about the Kimberleys, there's other parts of Australia, different other parts of the world. It's inhumane to agree that, right, we'll disperse of this chemical that we can't do nothing about. We'll disperse of it by the strategy. And the strategy is there is unwanted noxious weeds that exist in this part of the country. And, you know, we have teams of people that will go out and kill those weeds with these chemicals. Great, this is how we get rid of it, this is how it all lines up. I used to ride through there, this is, you know, a lot about 20 years ago, a little bit less than that. And my horse used to get it along the hooves, you know, the hairs behind their hooves, and you'd have to jump off and clean them up, and their tail, I mean, just unreal. You can't, there's some country there where it's not only a fluffy weed on the ground, but it can grow quite stalky. You know, you're straight up and down, and it's higher up, and you know, you just can't walk through there. It's everywhere. I used to, when I managed Mount Anderson, you couldn't have any Negura bird leaving your property. So every beast we sold, we had to clean the tail, the pizzle, or anywhere else. You know, it was intense work. But it's everywhere. There's no, there shouldn't be any you know, we shouldn't be mistaken. That whole strategy did not work. We're not only talking about the damage to the aquatic ecology of the river, the river itself, the whole, you know, it's a pristine environment, and here we are using probably the world's most powerfulest chemicals, willy-nilly just being sprayed on the country to get rid of weeds, and you're using, you know, human beings to do that, and it's almost like no one's really weighed up the damage that it was not only going to do to the country, but the people involved in dispersing of this poison. I mean, it's just almost unbelievable. You know, that human beings can make the decision to allow this to happen. Who are those people? What is that paper trail? What is that journey of decisions that allowed those substances to end up here and to be dispersed like that? Someone needs to be held accountable. We need to talk about this, and who takes responsibility for it, and what do you do thereafter? So that's what interests me at the end of the day is that I would like to see some form of justice.